This is Hoss Turlington of Delaware County, Oklahoma. Police perjury is a serious matter. When a cop commits police perjury, he not only puts himself in jeopardy of becoming a convicted felon, perjury is a felony, but he puts his family in jeopardy of losing the man of the house to prison. He brings shame to his family. He brings shame to his wife and his children, but most of all, his parents who raised him. Unless they're dead, then he brings shame on their memory. When a cop commits police perjury, he brings shame to his police department, his chief or sheriff, his supervisors, and his fellow cops he works with in his community. When a cop commits police perjury, he jeopardizes the integrity of every police officer in his community. He jeopardizes the integrity of the criminal justice system as a whole. Worst of all, when a cop commits police perjury, he can put an innocent man in prison, or worse, executed. In my best-selling true crime thriller, The Most Dangerous Man in the Rape of Delaware County, I referenced another best-selling true crime thriller by best-selling author and attorney John Grisham, titled The Innocent Man. It has recently been made into a Netflix documentary. I suggest you watch it. It is about rural Oklahoma cops who depended on perjured snitch testimony to put a man on death row, where he remained for 11 years before being found innocent at the last moment. Outsider city boy Delaware County Sheriff Harlan Moore and outsider city boy District Attorney Kenny Wright tried for 5 years to put me in prison on perjured snitch testimony for a felony that could have put me away for life. If you think that police perjury is no big deal, there's something seriously wrong with you. Greetings, this is Hoss Turlington. Now it's time for Scotty to go. I told Scotty recently in a video that he needed to take his wife's advice and retire and move to Florida to be with her grandkids. Well, yesterday, Scotty Graham was calling around to the local police departments trying to find out the contact information for who he thought was my source of information in the police departments. And he also stated that his wife is really wanting him to retire now while he still has his retirement in light of my videos. And I'm telling you one last time, Scotty, this is September 17th. It's a Thursday. You have till next Friday. And if you're putting your paperwork by then, I'll take all your stuff off. I'll take everything that you blank out your name and everything else. You'll have your reputation intact, more or less. And you don't have to worry about your retirement. But you're not going to get away with this. And this video, I'm going to set out addressing some of the things that he didn't deny that I stated, and some things that he did say that were wrong. I'll play a short clip where some undercover cops recorded our criminal district attorney, Kenny Wright. I recently made a video titled Delco 14 about our sheriff-elect Mark Berry. Anyway, in this video, I mentioned a case where Under Sheriff Bill Stout was caught and actually admitted to stealing money, taking it home, and drugs after drug bust. And he perjured himself in a drug case in which current Grove Police Department Sergeant Scotty Graham also perjured himself. And Bill Stout was 2 months away from retirement. He wound up being a fall guy, and he was allowed to retire still, and he could actually work 2 more months, so God knows what he did those last 2 months. And he got his retirement and unemployment. And I explained that the reason that they did that is because he had so much on the dirty district attorney at the time. They weren't about to go hard on Mr. Stout. Anyways, most of you've seen, Scotty Graham has become very vocal with me on Facebook And notwithstanding the fact that no professional law enforcement organization would allow a street cop to go online and discuss police matters or legal matters or anything else on behalf of the station, unless that was their job. They were the spokesman. Of course, Graham's boss, of course, Sergeant Graham's mentor is this man, Grove Police Chief Mark Titties Morris. Here's a picture of him committing multiple crimes and ethics violations. And Titties' mentor is this man, softer, slower, shorter Gale Wells. So you can see Sergeant Graham had no chance at ever learning how to be a lawful, ethical, respectable cop to begin with. Now I'll show you two claims I made that Sergeant Graham did not deny when he was making all of his other denials. The first one is about him and another local cop who's still working, just being investigated by OSBI for stealing a couple $100. The investigation came to a close when Sergeant Graham and this other cop refused to take a polygraph. Just like Scotty Graham. He's a crooked cop, and that's why Titties Morris loves him so much and made him a sergeant. Scotty was just under investigation this last year for stealing money. Page. A few moments ago, I showed a screenshot from the Haas Turlington page. Underneath it, he was saying he was praying for my narcissistic personality. You saw that. Of course, that's a lie. He's not praying for anything positive for me. And then this lengthy thread continues, and you can go there and look at it. He never did deny that he was investigated. Okay, but then here I made another claim in the response. Here I told him that I'd heard that he asked Titties, the police chief, if he could pull me over. And obviously he asked that meaning without probable cause. Because he has the legal right to pull, any cop has the right to pull over anyone else if they have probable cause. Any citizen does. I'm getting ready to go into that in another video. And I went on to warn any cop if they want to try to pull me over and plant contraband, and it's not going to work out well for them. If anyone ever tries to frame me or my family again, it is going to be really bad for them. And but anyway, he answered it, and he didn't deny it. He didn't deny that he didn't deny that he asked Titties if he could pull me over, because he knows, again, I can mention the cops' names who told me he said that, because he says it in front of them. No one, very few people like Scotty, and the sources I have that tell me this information, you think they're afraid of him? No. Or if they were, they wouldn't be telling me. Judge Alicia Littlefield in Delaware County, which is the southern half of our judicial district, and Bill Culver, who's a judge in Ottawa County, the northern half of our judicial district, who's recently retired. Ask either one of them what they think about Scotty Graham's integrity. They both know that he perjured himself. And Bill Culver teaches a class, or did, I don't know if he still does, but as of last year, he was teaching a class to reserve cops on law, and he would use Scotty Graham's paperwork as an example of what not to do. He would use Scotty Graham as an example of a bad cop, what kind of cop to not be. But what I'm getting ready to let you listen to is a part of Kenny's recording where he's trying to justify censuring a cop, Scotty Graham, who committed perjury in court. That's what we're talking about. Every cop that's been around here knows this. And before I play you this tape that these undercover cops recorded of Kenny Wright, our district attorney, and that's normal, by the way. I'll make another video on that just to show you the depth of how, just to show you how normal and often cops record their bosses and other law enforcement and other law professionals around here. But I need to explain the background. Before I do that, I need to point out the role of evidence and what happens when you hide evidence from juries and judges. Now, when Delaware County Sheriff's Office had me framed, a large part of the frame consisted of withholding exculpatory evidence. There was also altering evidence, witness tampering with witness testimonies, stuff of this nature. You name it, basically. With one of the main forms of police conduct, Gail Wells, shorter, slower, softer undersheriff at the time, Gail Wells, engaged in was withholding exculpatory evidence. Exculpatory evidence is any evidence that tends to exonerate the defendant or the accused. Doesn't mean it exonerates him, it means it tends to exonerate him, which basically is anything that helps his case. You've got to share with, not just with the defense, but with the judge and the court and the jury. Now, the exculpatory evidence that you're going to hear in this recording comes in the form of a dishonest state's witness, Scotty Graham. You'll hear them discuss the process of informing the courts, their juries, of someone's dishonesty. But Giglio was a case where the state's witness had made a deal with the prosecutors that he would not be prosecuted if he gave this testimony, which of course is the essence of snitch-based prosecution. Here's part of a letter that was written to Kenny Wright regarding Scotty Graham's dishonesty, but it kind of explains about Giglio. In the case of Giglio versus United States, the Supreme Court decided that any evidence, whether it's digital evidence or physical, or other material that may cause the value or accuracy of a witness's testimony into question, must be revealed by the prosecution at the time of the trial. By taking a look at the fundamentals surrounding the case and learning from mistakes made by the government, we can develop. Okay, so there you have it, and that's what they're talking about. Scotty Graham perjured himself in the same case I showed you about Bill Stout, and yet he's allowed to be a cop for decades after that. Here's another part from that letter. As required by law, I write to inform you of Officer Terry Scott Graham. Several years ago, he testified under oath in a court of law and was dishonest with the court and told the district attorneys that he was untruthful on the stand. See Bill Stout, Delaware case CF, which means criminal felony, 2000-00236. As you are aware, this not only is a crime, but under Brady versus Maryland and Giglio versus United States, Brady is the one that established what I told you earlier, that you have to show exculpatory evidence, that the prosecutors do. Prosecution is required to disclose such information regarding the untruthfulness of law enforcement officers to prosecutors and the defense. Law enforcement officers, both at the federal and state local levels of the United States, depend on their reputations to achieve successful prosecutions. Whether it be through oral testimony given in a court of law or using the written word, law enforcement officers must strive to always tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, taking into consideration what happens when a law enforcement officer is found to have lied or purposefully admitted pertinent information in a court of law while under oath. Law enforcement officers are then put on a Giglio list. So that's what they're talking about. And yes, you people who still think that we have justice for all, and if you don't do anything wrong, the cops won't arrest you, things of this nature, yes, actually, cops can actually lie in court, get caught, and then still keep on with their career. They're just put on a Giglio list. So jurors know, oh, this is a dirty cop. And take that into consideration when they're trying to put some poor bastard in a cage for the rest of his life, or just take his life.
December 27th, 1 o'clock p.m. Meeting with Kenny Wright, District Attorney.
You had an officer that, you know, found by a judge that that officer lied, then obviously that comes in and a jury would get to hear about it.
What Kenny just said was, if you had an officer that's been, found by a judge that officer lied, then obviously that comes in and that's something a jury would get to hear about. That's the Giglio process that I had explained to you earlier. And you knew I was going to say this, so I am. Note Kenny Wright's, how he whines when he talks. Unless you're a feminine move-in from the city like he is, then you did notice it. But he whines like a bitch in heat when he talks. And that's not a vulgar statement either. And that's how dogs in heat, they whimper and they whine just like him when he talks. He always talks like that. He's such a puss. He is a feminine. All these people are from the city. They're ruling over us. They're feminine city people. The guy before him, the district attorney before him, Eddie Wyant, look at this guy. Does he not look like someone that would look at child porn? I'll have some stories about him. At the time he arrested me, he's the one that filed charges on me. At the time he filed those charges, he lived across the street and one house down from my mother. And wait till I tell you what the people in her neighborhood say about him. But all these guys, Nick the prick Lelicus from Boston, the little prosecutor that tried to prosecute me, Harlan Moore, Gail Wells, all these people, they're just such pussies. They're such feminine, despicable excuses for men to be cops and law enforcement, to be ruling over us. It makes me sick. This does not make me happy making these videos, having to go over all this crap again. Now, what I'm going to play for you is, remember, it's a cop and a supervisor. The cop's been accused of being dishonest on workman's comp. It's not the purpose of this video whether he was being dishonest or not, but you'll see later on that he's just getting harassed by Kenny because he doesn't play Kenny's games and he's an honest cop, unlike Scotty Graham. But in the course of this conversation now, because the junior cop is getting accused of being dishonest over something that didn't even happen in court, which is the purpose of a Giglio, which I've shown you. The cop says to Kenny, because Scotty Graham has never been Giglio'd, but he's going to say, he says, wait a minute, we've got two cops working, they're on duty right now, working cops that have been in front of court and lied, and you know that. That's what he tells Kenny. Everybody knows this about Scotty Graham and Delaware County law enforcement. Just ask. So the cop asks, well, are you going to Giglio them? Because both of them have been shown to be dishonest in front of a judge. And wait till you hear what Kenny said. It's predictable. Because he likes dishonest cops. If you're a dishonest DA, you're a criminal DA like Kenny is, well, then you want criminal cops working for you, and you don't want a goody two-shoes. Someone like RoboCop, who catches a felon informant in the middle of several felonies. I'm an informant for Dan Eason. You need to let me go here. I'm on your side. That's what he told Dave. That's what he told Sergeant RoboCop. And RoboCop put it in his report, instead of letting him go like he's supposed to do, which would have been illegal and unethical and not what he would do. But that's what you're supposed to play the game and let him go. But instead, Dave put it in his report. Oh, he told me he was an informant for Dan Eason, who is Kenny Wright's investigator in Ottawa County. But Kenny doesn't like the honest guys, and that's why he's giving the guy a hard time. So watch this play out.
If I was in court and had made up to be possibly lied, we've had two officers on duty now that have done that. Where does that go from there? I mean, I don't know where the officers are with it. I know they're still working the street, Paynes and Graham, and both of them have had instances in front of the judge.
Yeah.
Because that was in court, in front of the judge.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question is, where do we go from here? I mean, are you having to send out gig lists on those other officers? I would assume so.
And I will tell you, now Scott's was a long time
It was.
ago. And of course, I wasn't a prosecutor at that point in time, nor was I involved in that particular case, but I'm familiar with it because I was practicing and I knew what was going on.
I was in court, in front of the judge.
So there you heard District Attorney Kenny Wright acknowledge that he knows that Scotty Graham perjured himself in court. You also heard that he's more concerned about a cop committing workers' comp fraud, which I think it'll be clear that he didn't later in another video, but that's not the point of this. You also saw that Kenny Wright is not going to do anything about Graham committing perjury. He likes that because he's a criminal. Both of them are. But Kenny Wright is not the purpose of this video right now that I'm showing you, and neither is the poor bastard that is being accused of workers' comp fraud. I just wanted to show that, yes, it is acknowledged in the law enforcement community, and all the prosecutors know it, that Scotty Graham committed perjury.
Well, we can't buy liquor, so we make speed. We can't buy beer, we grow weed. We do our best to avoid the law in the dry counties of Arkansas.